The chandelier-lit ballroom pulsed with soft classical music and quiet laughter, but to Lena Harper, the room felt suffocating. She stood near the edge of the party, fingers tightening around her champagne glass, reminding herself to breathe. This wasn't just any party. It was a high-society charity gala, the kind she never imagined attending in her lifetime. Crystal glasses, designer gowns, men whose watches cost more than her car. And yet here she was, not because she belonged, but because her boss did. Lena adjusted the simple navy blue dress she'd bought on sale and told herself she was lucky just to be here. As executive assistant to Ethan Cross, one of the youngest self-made millionaires in the city, she had learned how to blend into rooms like this, silent, invisible, useful. Ethan stood only a few steps away, tall and composed in a charcoal suit, speaking effortlessly with donors and CEOs. At 37, he was already a legend in the business world. Humble origins, ruthless intelligence, and a reputation for integrity that made people listen when he spoke. "You okay?" he asked quietly, glancing back at her. "Yes," Lena lied with a polite smile. She didn't tell him her chest felt tight. She didn't tell him this place reminded her of everything she once lost. Because the past had a way of showing up uninvited. And tonight, it did. A laugh cut through the room. A laugh she recognized instantly. Her heart dropped. Slowly, unwillingly, Lena turned. And there he was. Mark Caldwell. Her ex. Impeccably dressed. Confident. Surrounded by admiration. The man who once told her she was too small-minded to keep up with his ambitions. The man who laughed when she chose stability over risk. The man who walked away the moment she stopped believing she wasn't enough. He was holding the arm of a glamorous woman in red, whispering something that made her laugh again. And then, Mark saw her. Recognition flashed across his face, followed by satisfaction. He excused himself and walked straight toward her. "Well, I'll be damned," he said loudly. "Lena Harper. I almost didn't recognize you." Ethan paused his conversation. Lena forced a smile. "Mark." His eyes swept over her dress. "Didn't expect to see you here. I thought these events were out of your league." The words landed hard. The woman beside him smirked. "This is the ex you told me about? She seems sweet." Sweet. That old familiar humiliation crept up Lena's spine. Mark leaned closer. "So tell me, Lena, still working the same job? Still playing it safe?" Before she could answer, he glanced past her, then laughed. "Oh wait, you're working here?" His eyes flicked to Ethan. "What are you now? A secretary?" The word burned. Lena opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Years of self-doubt came rushing back. That was when she felt it. A hand, warm, steady, rested gently on her lower back. "Is everything all right, love?" Ethan's voice was calm. Intimate. Too intimate. Lena froze. Ethan stepped closer, pulling her subtly against his side. His presence was grounding. Protective. Mark frowned. "And you are?" Ethan smiled and extended his hand. "Ethan Cross," he said smoothly. "Lena's boyfriend." The room seemed to tilt. Mark's face drained of color. "The Ethan Cross?" the woman in red whispered. "Yes," Ethan replied, unbothered. "That one." Mark laughed nervously. "That's funny. Lena never mentioned she was dating a millionaire." "She didn't need to," Ethan said. "We value privacy." Then, without warning, he leaned down and pressed a gentle kiss to Lena's temple. Her breath caught. The touch was brief, but electric. "She's incredible," Ethan continued. "Brilliant. Loyal. The backbone of my company." Lena's heart raced. Mark stared. Speechless. "Well," Mark muttered, forcing a grin. "Guess some people get lucky." Ethan's smile didn't falter. "Luck has nothing to do with it." As they walked away, Ethan didn't remove his hand. Lena's mind spun. This was supposed to be an act. So why did it feel so real? And why, when Ethan finally looked at her, did his eyes hold something far deeper than pretense? She had no idea that one kiss, meant to silence a cruel man, was about to change her life forever. The lie goes viral. And judgment comes knocking. By the next morning, Lena Harper's name was everywhere. She didn't know that when she woke up. She only knew she had barely slept. Her mind replayed the night in fragments. The chandelier light, Mark's smirk collapsing into disbelief, Ethan's hand on her back, the warmth of his kiss at her temple that lingered long after the music stopped. It was supposed to be pretend. So why did it feel like something real had been cracked open? Her phone buzzed nonstop on the nightstand. She ignored it at first, assuming it was work emails. But when the screen lit up again, she caught a glimpse of the notification preview. Is this Ethan Cross's secret girlfriend? Her heart slammed. She grabbed the phone. There it was, an article from a local society blog. A blurry photo from the gala. Ethan's arm around her waist. Her face turned slightly toward him. Below it, speculation exploded. She's just his assistant. Another gold digger. He'll get bored. She doesn't belong in his world. Lena sat on the edge of the bed, trembling. The lie had escaped the room. And now the world had an opinion. At the office, the air felt different. Whispers followed her through the hallway. Colleagues who once smiled politely now stared with open curiosity. Some looked impressed. Others looked skeptical. A few resentful. Lena kept her head down, pretending not to notice. She made it to her desk when Ethan's office door opened. "Lena," he said gently. "Can you come in?" Her stomach twisted. Inside, Ethan closed the door behind her and gestured for her to sit. "I'm sorry," he said immediately. This escalated faster than I expected. "So, you've seen it?" she whispered. He nodded. Every outlet in the city loves a secret romance. Especially when money is involved. Lena clasped her hands. "I never wanted this. I just didn't want to feel small again." Ethan's expression softened. "You didn't do anything wrong." There was a pause. Heavy. "Honest. I meant what I said last night," he continued quietly. "About you. About your value." She looked up, meeting his eyes. "Then why does this feel so dangerous?" Because the lie was too close to the truth. Before he could answer, his assistant buzzed the intercom. "Mr. Cross, your mother is here." Lena's breath caught. Ethan closed his eyes briefly. "I forgot she was in town." The door opened before either of them could speak. Margaret Cross entered like she owned the room, which she did in every way except legally. Elegant. Sharp-eyed. Controlled. Her gaze landed on Lena. "So," Margaret said coolly, "you're the girl from the photos." Lena stood. "Ms. Cross." Margaret smiled thinly. "Relax. I'm not here to cause a scene." She turned to Ethan. "But we need to talk." What followed wasn't loud. It was worse. Subtle questions. Polite doubt. Strategic concern. "You've worked hard to build credibility, Ethan," Margaret said. This distraction could undermine that. Lena felt invisible again. Reduced to a risk. Ethan's jaw tightened. "She's not a distraction. She's part of why I succeed." Margaret raised a brow. "Is she?" Silence stretched. Then Ethan did something Lena never expected. He reached for her hand. Firm. Public. Unapologetic. "Yes," he said. "She is." Margaret studied them both for a long moment. Then she nodded once. "We'll see." And just like that, the door closed behind her. Lena exhaled shakily. "You didn't have to do that." "I wanted to," Ethan replied. The word stayed with her all day. The backlash didn't stop. At a networking luncheon, a woman asked Lena how it felt to date success. At another event, someone joked that assistants always know how to climb. Each comment chipped away at her confidence. Until one night, alone in her apartment, Lena broke. She sat on the floor, phone in hand, staring at messages from strangers telling her she didn't deserve him. She typed a resignation email. Then deleted it. Then typed it again. A knock came at her door. She froze. Another knock, gentler. "Lena," Ethan's voice came through. "Please." She opened the door. He looked worried. Not powerful. Not composed. Just human. "I heard what they said tonight," he said. "I should have protected you better." She shook her head. "This was never your responsibility." "Maybe not," he replied. "But I don't want you carrying this alone." They stood inches apart. The air felt charged. "Tell me to stop," Ethan said quietly. "And I will." Lena searched his face. For arrogance. For control. For anything that resembled the man Mark once was. She found none of it. Instead, she saw patience, respect, care. "I don't want you to stop," she admitted. "I just don't know how to survive this." Ethan lifted her chin gently, not possessive but steady. "Then we face it together." And for the first time since the lie began, Lena believed him. But neither of them knew yet. The people judging her were about to learn the truth. And when they did, the balance of power would shift forever. They tried to break her in public. Not knowing she was the one holding the power. Lena Harper had always believed that if she worked hard enough, kept her head down and treated people with kindness, the world would eventually be fair. She was wrong. The invitation arrived on a Monday morning. The Cross Innovations Annual Leadership Summit. Every executive, every investor, every board member, Media present. And her name was on the list. Not as a guest. As a presenter. Lena stared at the email, her pulse racing. She had helped prepare strategy decks before. She had written speeches. She had advised from the shadows. But this was exposure. When she stepped into Ethan's office, he was already standing, jacket off, sleeves rolled up. "You saw it," he said. "Yes," she replied quietly. "And I know what this is." He didn't deny it. "They're testing you. The board. The critics. The ones who believed she was only there because of him. If you want to step back," Ethan added gently, "I'll understand." Lena straightened her shoulders. "No," she said. "I'm tired of hiding." The summit was held in a glass-walled convention hall overlooking the city, symbolic, transparent, unforgiving. As Lena walked inside, she felt eyes on her from every direction. Whispers followed. "That's her. The assistant. The girlfriend." She spotted Mark Caldwell across the room. He noticed her too. This time he smiled. Predatory. Confident. He approached with two executives in tow. "Well, if it isn't Cinderella," Mark said smoothly. "Did Ethan lend you the glass slippers too?" One of the men chuckled. Lena met Mark's gaze calmly. "Nice to see you too. I hear you're presenting today," he continued. "Bold move. These rooms can be unforgiving." Before she could respond, a woman stepped forward, one of the board members. "Ms. Harper," she said coolly, "we're all very curious to hear your insights." Curious, not respectful. The room filled. Lights dimmed. Ethan took his seat, front row, eyes never leaving her. Lena stepped onto the stage. Her hands trembled. Then she remembered every late night. Every dismissed idea. Every moment someone assumed she didn't belong. She began. She spoke of overlooked markets. Of ethical growth. Of efficiency models no one had considered. The room grew quiet. Too quiet. Then the questions came. Sure. Aggressive. Calculated. Who approved these projections? Are you qualified to assess this data? Is this information even yours? Mark raised his hand. "I'd like to know," he said loudly, "whether Ms. Harper's relationship has influenced her position." A murmur spread. Lena felt heat rise in her face. Before she could answer, Ethan stood. "No," Lena said into the microphone. Her voice was steady. "This presentation was built over 3 years. Every model, every forecast, I developed them. Quietly. Because no one asked." Silence. She clicked the next slide. Names appeared. Projects. Profits. "Here's where your revenue increased by 18%, she said. "This was my restructuring." Another slide. "And this acquisition? I advised against it. You ignored me. It cost you millions." Gasp. Mark's smile faltered. The board leaned forward. Lena kept going. "I stayed silent because I believed work should speak louder than ego," she said. "But silence looks like weakness to people who don't listen." She looked directly at Mark. "And underestimation," she added, "is expensive." The room erupted. Questions turned to admiration. Ethan watched her like he was seeing the future unfold. By the end, no one doubted her. Except one man. After the summit, Mark cornered her near the exit. "You planned this," he hissed. "You used him." Lena met his glare without fear. "No," she said. "I survived you." He laughed bitterly. "You think this changes anything? People like you don't stay on top." She stepped closer. "I don't need to be on top," she replied. "I just won't be beneath anyone again." Ethan appeared at her side. "Everything okay?" he asked. Mark scoffed and walked away. That night, Lena received 3 job offers. One email stood out. Subject: Board Appointment Proposal. Her hands shook. She wasn't being tolerated anymore. She was being respected. But with respect came a choice. And the hardest test was still ahead. When success cost her everything. And the truth finally came out. Success was supposed to feel like victory. For Lena Harper, it felt like standing in the middle of a storm with no shelter. The morning after the summit, her inbox was overflowing. Praise, offers, interview requests. People who had never learned her name now wanted her time. Executives who once dismissed her ideas now asked for her opinion. She had crossed the invisible line. But crossing it came with a price. When Lena arrived at the office, she noticed something immediately. People stood straighter around her. They smiled differently. Some with admiration. Others with calculation. The whispers hadn't disappeared, they had just changed tone. And then came the call. "Lena," the board chair said formally, "we'd like to offer you a permanent executive position." Her breath caught. There is, however, the chair continued, one condition. Lena already knew. For the sake of transparency and public trust, the woman said, we believe it would be appropriate for you and Mr. Cross to formally disclose, or dissolve, your relationship. The words settled heavily. That afternoon, Lena sat alone in the conference room, staring out at the city skyline. She had been underestimated because she was invisible. Now she was being controlled because she was visible. Ethan joined her quietly. They're asking you to choose, he said. Yes. Silence. I can step back, Ethan offered immediately. Publicly. Quietly. Whatever you need. She turned to him, heart aching. Why are you always the one sacrificing? He shrugged. Because I can afford to. That's not the point. She stood, pacing. I spent years proving I deserved my place. I won't let them reduce me to a scandal, or a shadow. Ethan watched her carefully. And what do you want? Lena stopped. The answer terrified her. I want to be respected, she said softly. For who I am. Not who I'm with. That night the headlines broke. Ethan Cross's rumored romance under board review. Commentary exploded. Some praised transparency. Others accused Lena of manipulation. One article crossed the line. Assistant uses romance to climb corporate ladder. Lena read it once. Then again. Then she closed her laptop and cried. Not because of the lies. But because part of her had expected them. Ethan found her later, sitting on the floor of her apartment. They don't get to define you, he said, kneeling beside her. She looked at him, eyes red. Neither do you. He flinched, not in anger but understanding. I love you, he admitted quietly. But I don't want to be the reason you're questioned. Her heart shattered. I love you too, she whispered. That's why this hurts. The next morning, Lena made her choice. She stood before the board, composed and calm. I accept the position, she said. On one condition. They leaned in. I will not continue a relationship that compromises my credibility, she continued. Effective immediately, Ethan Cross and I are no longer involved. Gasp. Ethan sat frozen. The board nodded, satisfied. The news spread fast. Power couple splits amid corporate pressure. But the truth was quieter. Ethan didn't call. Lena didn't either. They passed each other in hallways, professional and distant. The hardest part wasn't the loss of love. It was the silence. Weeks passed. Lena excelled in her role. Led initiatives. Changed culture. But something was wrong. Behind closed doors, Mark Caldwell was working. Leaking half-truths. Twisting narratives. And when the final blow came, it came publicly. At a televised shareholder meeting. Mark stood. I have concerns, he announced. About the integrity of recent strategic decisions. Screens lit up. Internal emails. Edited. Misrepresented. All pointing to one conclusion. Lena Harper had manipulated outcomes for personal gain. The room erupted. Lena felt the floor drop beneath her. She looked at Ethan. For the first time in weeks, their eyes met. And this time he stood. The truth hits back. And karma arrives without mercy. The room buzzed with chaos. Shareholders whispered. Cameras zoomed in. Reporters leaned forward like vultures sensing blood. Lena Harper stood frozen at the podium, her heartbeat pounding so loudly she could barely hear the accusations echoing through the auditorium. Mark Caldwell stood confidently near the aisle, hands clasped, wearing the expression of a man who believed he had finally won. These emails clearly show manipulation, Mark said calmly. Decisions were influenced for personal advancement. The company deserves transparency. The screen behind him displayed messages, strategic recommendations, internal discussions, taken out of context, rearranged to tell a damaging story. Lena's hands trembled. She knew those emails. She had written them. But not like this. Before she could speak, Ethan Cross stood up. The movement alone silenced the room. Stop the presentation, Ethan said, his voice sharp and commanding. The technician hesitated. I said stop. The screen went dark. Every eye turned to Ethan. He walked toward the stage, not as the billionaire CEO, not as the man once rumored to be in love, but as someone who had waited long enough. What you're seeing, Ethan said slowly, is not the truth. It's a performance. Mark's jaw tightened. You're emotionally compromised, Ethan. You should recuse yourself. Ethan smiled, cold, controlled. I already did, he replied. Weeks ago. Murmurs spread. Ethan turned to the audience. When Lena and I ended our relationship, I did more than step back publicly, he said. I authorized a full internal audit. Gasps rippled through the room. Mark's face drained of color. Ethan gestured to the side of the stage. Please welcome our independent compliance team. Two professionals stepped forward. The emails shown, one of them began, were altered. Timestamps changed. Sentences removed. Context deliberately distorted. The room erupted. That's impossible. Mark snapped. The auditor continued calmly. We traced the edits. They originated from one source. She looked directly at Mark. Mr. Caldwell. Silence slammed into the room like a physical force. Ethan stepped closer. You underestimated her, he said quietly. And you underestimated me. Security approached Mark as shareholders shouted in outrage. This is a misunderstanding. Mark yelled. She manipulated you. She. Enough, Ethan said. Mark was escorted out, protesting, humiliated, exposed. The cameras caught everything. Lena stood trembling, tears filling her eyes. Ethan turned to her. This woman, he said to the room, has more integrity than anyone I've ever worked with. She gave up love to protect this company. And you questioned her. Silence. Then applause. It started slowly, then grew, until the room was standing. Lena covered her mouth, overwhelmed. Justice had arrived. And it was swift. Later that evening, the city skyline glowed outside the same glass walls where everything had nearly been taken from her. Lena stood alone, until Ethan joined her. I should have trusted you to fight, she said softly. You did, he replied. You just didn't know it yet. They stood in silence. I don't regret choosing myself, Lena said. Ethan nodded. Neither do I. She turned to him. But I regret the cost. So do I, he admitted. But now, there's no lie between us. He took her hand, this time not to protect her, but to stand beside her. Lena smiled through tears. I don't want to hide anymore, she said. Neither do I, Ethan replied. No pretending. No power imbalance. Just two people choosing each other. She nodded. Outside, the city buzzed on, unaware that a quiet justice had just reshaped two lives. Weeks later, the headlines changed again. Former executive charged with corporate fraud. Lena Harper appointed chief strategy officer. Ethan Cross praises, the most brilliant mind in the room. Mark Caldwell disappeared from the spotlight. Lena Harper stepped fully into it. Not because of who she loved, but because of who she was.